Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Maggie, your host of Neighbors Helping Neighbors, the podcast from Father Joe's Villages. This is a continuation in our series of podcasts exploring the issue of homelessness, its causes, and the solutions to the issue. Guests will include leaders and experts in the space, as well as people with unique perspectives on homelessness. If you'd like to learn more about our mission, visit us at neighbor.org or follow us on social media at Father Joe's Villages. Today we have President and CEO Deacon Jim and Jesse Casement, Division Director of Client Services at Father Joe's Villages, San Diego's oldest and largest homeless service provider. We have lots to get into today, so let's get started. At Father Joe's Villages, we have a 4-pillar model of care. These are comprehensive, solution-based services that include investing in children, making health a priority, strengthening self-sufficiency, and meeting basic needs, which is what we'll be talking about today. Meeting basic needs means food, shelter, showers, mail, things that you and I probably take for granted in our everyday lives, while neighbors out there are really struggling to secure these things. So we have Jesse and Deacon Jim here to explore this together, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having us.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Let's start by talking about what you do at Father Joe's Villages.
Hi. So my name's Jesse Casement. I'm the Division Director of Client Services at Father Joe's. I've been at FJV for 13 years now, going on 14 years. And really my team and our focus is to deliver the social services aspect of client-based care. So everything from outreach services and drop-in care at our day center to our shelter and case management services. We offer therapeutic childcare and employment services, and then also the tenant services involved in helping people find and keep their housing.
Okay, very far-reaching.
Yeah.
It is far-reaching, and that is one aspect of Father Joe's Villages, an important, obviously, aspect, because that's the services and programs. But yet, in addition to that, we're so much more. We're healthcare. We have a federally qualified health care, and we'll be talking about that actually in a future segment. But basically, that works with primary care, dental care, behavioral health, which is such an important aspect. People are suffering from mental health challenges, those who are suffering from substance use disorder. And so the health team there meets people where they are, on the streets as an example. If they don't come in to typical brick and mortar, like you and I would for medical care. So we meet them where they are in order to help them in their circumstances so that they could really thrive. And that's what it's all about. It's recognizing that people travel out of their states of their journey out of homelessness, I'd like to say, at different stages, right, in different paces.
Definitely.
So we want to make sure that we're most effective and efficient, effective at the resources that we provide for those who we serve, for the programs, and also that we're efficient with the dollars that are entrusted to us, right? They're philanthropic dollars. They're also public funds as well. So we want to make sure that we really make a difference in the lives of these individuals as they journey out of their homelessness. And hey, Jessie precedes me here by a few years. She's been here 13 years, and she's great. She's at what she does. And I've been here almost 9 years, actually. And this, I like to think that this is ministry for me, right? I'm a deacon of the Catholic Church, as you know, Maggie. And really, this is not, it's not that I'm president and CEO who happens to be a deacon. Really, I'm a deacon, and this is my ministry as president and CEO. And so it's my great blessing to be able to lead such a great team. We have a team of 450 to 500 employees at any given time, and then their respective disciplines, basically. They're experts at what they do and how they deliver the services.
Well, I must say we're lucky to have both of you. I enjoy both of you individually and working with you. So thank you again for being here. What do you feel is your mission at Father Joe's Villages?
You know, definitely everything that I'm doing is working within our organizational mission, which is to prevent and end homelessness one life at a time. But personally, I feel like my journey and my role at Father Joe's Villages is to lead teams who work every day to help our clients resume that role of expert in their own lives. Homelessness and everything that can contribute and lead up to that housing crisis can devastate a person and really break down their confidence and their own belief in themselves. And so I feel like it is our obligation and our duty to help rebuild that person by empowering them and helping them really regain that trust in themselves so that they can meet their own goals to end their housing crisis.
I love that.
I think, picking up on what Jesse just said, which is so excellent, is really tapping into their potential. One of my greatest delights is when I see an individual who's first come in and they feel dejected and they look dejected, right? And they don't make eye contact, right? They hardly speak. But then they go, let's say, through our employment services and vocational training. And they're able to, they have a certificate now, right? Because maybe now they're in culinary arts and they feel a sense of satisfaction. They're smiling, they're looking at you, right? And they're thanking us. And yet they've done the work, right? We provided the resources and tapped into their potential, instilled that hope or reinstilled that hope. And they've done the work and then they go forward, right? So that's when you ask, what's my mission as an example, it is just that, right? Making sure that we're able to help people get on their feet and then move forward.
And yeah, that is why I do what I do. That's why we do what we do. It's those to see them go from point A to point B. That's what makes it fun.
Makes a difference. Yeah.
I love that you brought up hope, Deacon Jim. That's really a word that we use a lot over in our office where I work, is really talking about bringing that hope back. And, it's not unusual to see someone come in and really spend their first week or so just sleeping and resting after everything that they've been through on the street. But one of our director of residential services, Dana, talks a lot about giving someone their name back and helping them to really remember who they are and not just part of a problem or someone who's been walked by and ignored.
Right.
So,
homelessness does not define them.
No,
and that's the key, right? That's so very, very key. I don't like to use the term homeless individual, right? Because that's almost the adjective that almost defines them. That's not the case. There's someone who happens to be homeless, right? Because of circumstances, various circumstances. So that's really key.
So it's often getting connected with these shelter beds or these basic needs that are the point of entry for our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. What are the basic needs that Father Joe's aims to provide to these individuals?
You want to take that one, Jessica?
Sure.
Yeah.
I can start. So really that first interaction that we have with someone may not even be shelter. It could be the outreach team that is out and interacting with people who are currently living on the streets. It could be someone who has come to our front desk at our guest services in the Joan Kroc Center building, or it could be someone who has come to our day center, which is a drop-in center that we operate 7 days a week. And really, while we want to make someone feel welcome and, make all of our services available to them, that could be anything from laundry or getting a shower, plugging in their cellular device. There's not a lot of outlets, that someone can access if they don't have a home. And so we want to connect them to all of those basic services, but a lot of the work that we're doing while that is happening is to learn what resources are available to that individual. So it's called a diversion conversation. That's the first step before we ever start talking about shelter with someone, is where else could you be? We don't want you to be homeless. We don't want you to be on the streets. We also don't want you in shelter if there's somewhere else that you could be. And so the diversion conversation really starts with asking someone, when was the last time you did a favor for somebody else? Do they owe you a favor?
Right.
Can we give them a call?
Wow,
Is there somewhere that you could be? Is it, what's contributing to your housing crisis right now? Is it a small thing like, paying off a parking ticket so that you can get your vehicle back or something like that? So the diversion conversation starts not with how do we get you into shelter, but how do we keep you away from shelter? How do we keep you out of the system altogether? Of course, if someone doesn't have a safe place to be, then we are going to work to get them into shelter. And so that conversation really involves learning what it is that they need in the shelter environment and then seeing what kind of resources are available to them. For Father Joe's Village's shelter programs that we oversee the wait list for, unfortunately, there is a wait list for our programs, then it's a matter of adding those folks onto our wait list and letting them know how to check back in and making sure that they've got the proper referrals and resource connections in the meantime while they're waiting. For people who are best fit for the city-funded shelter, then we make that referral to the San Diego Housing Commission, and the San Diego Housing Commission will determine which city-funded shelter has a bed available right now to help that person get into shelter that night if possible.
So back to basics, kind of walk me through it. Someone finds himself experiencing homelessness. What office do they visit? What phone number do they call? What steps would they take?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that someone can get connected. Really, the the idea in San Diego is no wrong front door. And so we want someone to be able to walk into any service provider or interact with any outreach worker on the streets to get connected to the same resources. So if someone comes across an outreach worker, then that's fantastic. If they want somewhere to go, like a storefront, if you will, we operate San Diego Day Center, which is located on 17th Street. So 17th and Imperial. We're open 7 days a week. So we're happy to connect with someone there. Otherwise, someone can call 619-233-8500, and our information and referral team can help make connections and give them the right information that they need to get connected with services.
Wonderful.
And that number, it's 619 homeless, right? But it's
Is
as simple
it?
as it is. It is actually. And I say that only because a lot of times it's hard to remember numbers, right? But it's 619 homeless. So it's as easy as that, right?
Hey.
So yeah,
Learn
no,
something.
that's but there are various ways. It's a point and that Jesse is making, and the shelters are varied as well. I mean, again, it's not a one size fits all. And Jesse referenced city-funded programs. We have programs that are not funded by the city, right?
Okay.
And so I want Jessie to get into a lot of those, and I say that because she's excited about all the shelter beds, and we have about 1,000 shelter beds, by
Tell
the
me
way,
about
on
them.
any
Tell
given
me.
night. I
Yeah.
mean, so and they're very different depending upon the circumstances. Whether it's for family, we have a family living center, right? And we have our family employment program. Empowerment program, the family empowerment program. We have our what we call St. Margaret of Crotona Harbor, and I'm naming these, but I want Jessie to describe them because she's just passionate about each of these programs, and rightly so. And the populations they serve and the good that they do, right? The successes that we have there. So why don't you tell us about the shelter programs?
Yeah, I would love to. So I'll start with the city-funded shelter. We operate Golden Hall, which is 324 beds for single adults or people who are most comfortable and safe living in a program that is designed for males. So that's 324 single adults living on the first floor of Golden Hall. That's a city-funded program, and someone can connect to that program through what we talked about before, which is getting connected to the Housing Commission, and the Housing Commission making a placement into that program. We also operate and own the building called Paul Mirable Center that is located on our campus at 15th and Imperial. We have 350 beds for single adults. Shelters are designed in a binary system, but we don't serve just binary clients. So we do have a floor with 80 beds for single women or people who identify as female. And then we have a floor in that building for 270 single men or people who identify as male. Across the street, we own and operate the Bishop Maher Center. We've got 2 floors of shelter there, also for single adults. On the 4th floor, we have 28 beds for single women or people who identify as female. That is also city-funded shelter, as is the Paul Mirable Center. I'm not sure if I said that. So again, those connections are made through the Housing Commission to come into those beds. But on the 5th floor, we have 38 beds for single adults who have a long-term medical condition. I don't want to give away the identity and what that medical condition is for people living on that floor, but there's a very specific way that someone can come into that program. So in order to get into that program, the best contact would be to call 619-HOMELESS. I learned today, 619-HOMELESS, and they can tell you all about how to get into that program. But it's a very specific referral method to come into those beds that requires a medical diagnosis. So that's our Bishop Maher Center, our Paul Mirable Center. Those are both on our campus, and then also Golden Hall. Where we get to be the most creative, I would say, would be our Joan Kroc Center, which is also located on our campus at 15th and Imperial. We have 2 floors of shelter there. So I'll start with the 3rd floor, which is where we have up to 28 beds for recuperative care. These are people who are exiting a medical setting, or maybe they need to prepare for a surgery. We do have folks that come in because they need a place to stabilize before they can have a medical procedure done. Those referrals are made through their insurance plan or maybe through a medical provider that they have. We do also get referrals that come through for the recuperative care program that are done. Maybe they're living in another shelter environment and their case manager might call to refer them. And then we have staff that connect to their plan, their Medi-Cal provider, who can approve or unfortunately sometimes deny their intake into that program. And so that's up to 28 beds for that program. We also, on that third floor, have the remainder of our beds for people with chronic health issues, like we talked about before, in the Bishop Maher Center. So it's a continuation over there. So a total of 70 beds for people with chronic health issues and a specific diagnosis. We move down to the second floor. That's where our families are located. So we definitely want to meet our clients where they are. We know that families look all kinds of ways. Family could be that it is a custodial grandparent living with their grandchildren. It could be that we have a parent and their child and maybe an aunt in the family who is connected to the family. So we want to serve the family however they appear to us. But our requirement for the family program does involve that they have children living with them. If they don't have children living with them, then we'll help connect them to a program for single adults. Even though they're not single and they are a family, we want to make best use of our Joan Kroc Center second floor for people with children. At the Joan Kroc Center, we have 52 rooms. So it's easier to talk about families in terms of rooms versus beds, but we have 52 rooms, 24 of those rooms are what we call emergency shelter for families. So these are rooms for families who are coming usually directly from the street or a doubled up situation. Maybe they've been sleeping in their car. They just don't have anywhere to safely reside with their children anymore. And that's their first stop with us, is in the Joan Kroc Center second floor emergency shelter for families program. If families wish to stay with us, and by that I mean engage in case management and really focus on exiting to housing with income, then they can elect to move into what's called our Family Living Center. That's on the same floor. They generally stay in the same room, but we have 28 households that we serve in our Family Living Center. This is where the numbers get a little jumbly, so tell me if I don't make any sense, but we have 28 rooms in the Family Living Center. 10 of those rooms are what's called our Family Empowerment program. And I'm really excited about that because it's an idea that came from our staff that work with the clients. So Deacon Jim and our leadership at Father Joe's Villages really make an intention of supporting innovation that our staff have. And so this was something that we kept hearing from our clients, was that they wanted to step up. All of our programs are low barrier programs. We want to remove as much barrier as possible for folks to come into our shelter. We don't want them to have a reason to say no or to hear no from us. But
and low barrier means
that someone does not have to be on any kind of prescription medication to tend to mental health issues. They don't have to have an ID. They don't have to pay any kind of program fees, and they don't have to be clean or sober.
Okay.
And so we believe in that. We believe in being low barrier. We also accept pets in all of our shelter beds.
Yay.
I just want to get that plug in there. All 1,048 shelter beds are pet friendly, which is not common in San Diego or in shelter environments across the country. But aside from that, low barrier definitely means just removing all of the reasons that someone may hear a no for eligibility. But we were hearing from our families that they wanted a place to live around other families who were also clean and sober. And so we wanted to build in choice. That's really important. Like Deacon had mentioned before, our clients come to us with all kinds of backgrounds and so many diverse needs. And sometimes that need is to live around people who are also clean and sober. And so we created a space. It's a wing of our floor that is dedicated to families who have made the commitment to being clean or sober. While in the program, they've made the commitment to working with a case manager, and they're currently employed or enrolled in one of our job training programs. So these families are really considered our role models for other families. They've done, extra classes and have really made a commitment to working towards exiting homelessness and exiting shelter. And the goal is always for them to exit to unsubsidized housing, meaning that they won't have any kind of, housing voucher or anything helping them to pay for their housing because they have done what they need to be able to exit on their own. So out of our 28 Family Living Center rooms, we have 10 that are Family Empowerment Program. That's our newest program. It started last November of 2022, and we're coming up on a year. And then we also have 10 families that we can serve in that space for our St. Margaret of Cortona Harbor program, which we are just so lucky to be able to provide through generous donations. And that particular program is dedicated towards serving young women who are currently pregnant or have recently had an infant. And so that may not sound unusual to someone who's listening. They may say, well, what makes that different than a family shelter bed? But generally, like I said, family shelter beds are dedicated to people who already have children with them. So in this situation, we can serve someone who is pregnant. That allows her to stabilize, to not have to focus on survival, and to be able to focus instead on prenatal care and make a plan for what she's going to do leading up to the birth of her child, but then also after she has her child. And so we're just really lucky to be able to provide flexible and creative programming like that. And it's, you hear the client stories and the testament that brings them to Father Joe's Villages. And it's really an honor and a privilege to get to do what we do.
Yeah,
it really is. See, I was right. Look how Jesse's passionate about these programs. And, in the JKC, the Joan Kroc Center, all those programs, they are philanthropically funded. All right. So, and that's very, very important because the generosity of people in the community. And it's, and St. Margaret Crotona Harbor being one of those examples. Since we opened that program, which wasn't that long ago, 9 babies have been born to those who have resided there within that program itself. We're so excited about that. And these are individuals. Can you imagine being on the streets in general and how hard that is? And then for a woman, and then to be pregnant. And sometimes you're pregnant and you have another child with you as well. How difficult is that? Right?
And the feelings of hopelessness,
That's
how am I
exactly
going to
right.
provide for my baby? How am I going to buy formula?
That's exactly right. So this support gives them what they need actually in order to be able to make the decision to keep the baby, as an example, right? So that then they feel that they're supported in that regard, prenatally and even postnatally, right? So it's just one of the many exciting programs that we have, and that, like I said, all those beds at the Joan Kroc Center are all philanthropically funded.
Wow.
Important.
And so there's a variety of different shelter types, beds for families, individuals. How does someone get connected to their shelter bed? I know you start with the diversionary conversation, and then you said that they have to contact the county. How does that work?
Yeah, it really depends on the program. So the best thing I could say here to sum it up is that if someone is in need of shelter services or thinks that they need some assistance, as there's some housing insecurity, the best thing they can do is contact our team, and the team can help connect them to the best resources, whether it's at Father Joe's Villages or whether it's making the introduction to the San Diego Housing Commission so they can determine what city-funded program is the best, or there could be, there's other independently funded programs in the community as well. So our team, our information and referral specialists, whether they're at the day center or at our guest services program, really their goal is to learn all of those resources and to be able to make those appropriate referrals for the clients that we're serving. 211 is also a great resource. 211 has all of the resources in the county, literally at their fingertips. They're a call center. And so that can be a great place to connect as well, to learn what kind of resources are available. But definitely always welcome to contact Father Joe's Villages, and we can help sort through that conversation.
Right.
Tell me more about the day center. I know it's a wonderful resource for our community. What happens there?
Yeah, that's an important one. It's one of the intake sites, as Jesse had mentioned. And it's also it's for single men and single women. They're on the streets. It's called the day center because they can come in the morning. It opens up in the morning about 8ish or so, and then it goes until the afternoon, maybe 4 thereabouts. They're back on the streets, unfortunately. But during that period of time, it's an opportunity. Sometimes it's giving them a place of respite, if nothing else, right? Because they're on their guard, especially women on the streets. A lot of them don't even sleep during the night because they have fear of being accosted, right? So giving them that opportunity, but also very importantly, is to start connecting with our workers, right? That's extremely important. We get them into the system. We start building a relationship with them so that we can get them off the streets as quickly as possible into the programs that they need. It also is, a lot of people use the address of the day center as their mailing address. I mean, things that you and I take for granted, right? We get mail at home and in our home, and here they don't have a home, and yet they need to receive their mail, and sometimes it's checks that they're receiving, right? So we provide the services there. I think to date, there've been 30,000 mail pieces, right, that have been delivered to that day center. Can you imagine? It's almost as if we have a postmaster there who sorts everything out, so that they can come in and ask for that. And
I'm sorry, you might not realize it, but having access to mail can be a serious barrier for housing. I know when I was In my previous position, I was working connecting people to housing, and oftentimes an ID or a social security card is required for those housing programs. And if you don't have an address to order that new ID,
Right.
Yeah.
that's going to set you back and just create another barrier.
Absolutely.
Everything we do is in order to remove those barriers.
Mhm.
That's what it's all about. So, and something as plugging something as simple as plugging in a phone.
Right.
Again, I don't know about you guys, but that's the last thing I do before I don't take my phone to bed. All right, so I leave it in the kitchen and I plug it in. In the morning, it's magically charged, right?
Right.
But these individuals don't have that
Yeah.
capability. So they come in and they're able
Mhm.
to plug in and then do laundry, showers. I got
Mhm.
20,000 showers have been dispensed as a result of the day center as well, right? So again,
Mhm.
things that we take for granted that are so very critical. So it's an extremely important resource. So we've seen over 5,500 individuals to date at the day center.
Wow.
Right, it's a lot of people, unique individuals
Mhm.
who've come in and access the services at the day center.
Yeah. It's a small facility to serve as many people as they do every day. It's just incredible
Right.
the work that they do. So shout out to our day center.
Yeah.
Right. And we're also through there, we're able to connect them to our meal service as well,
Mhm.
because we have our public lunch line. And that's an important element as well, right? I mean, a million meals a year, breakfast,
Right.
lunch, and dinner, and 2
Right.
dining rooms that we serve, right? Not just for those who reside with us, but also we're able to offer the services to those who are on the streets as well. And that's an important element. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're hungry, I know my wife tells me that I'm cranky when I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'm not really good for anything. And so, I mean, that's an important, when you're hungry,
Yeah.
how can you focus on other things, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's an important piece as well.
That's
If you're
important.
if you're concerned about having shelter, right, and having to be on the street, how can you focus on anything else, right? So you
Right.
have to provide
They
these
exacerbate
basics.
each other.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you have to work on these basics. And then in working on those basics, then you can focus on health, which is
Yeah.
so important. You can focus on
Yeah.
employment and these others that
Yeah.
really lift you out of your state.
Before we move into food, can you tell us a little bit about the inclement weather shelter?
Yeah, inclement weather shelter is upon us. It is the period of November 1st to March 31st of every year. I'm from the Midwest, so I still argue with the fact that San Diego has inclement weather. But I do recognize it. We all do. That's a joke. But for someone living on the streets, it is definitely a resource that's needed in our community. Inclement weather shelter is provided at Father Joe's Villages through our dining room spaces. And so we transition our spaces where our clients eat every day into a temporary overnight shelter. The inclement weather shelter is funded through the city of San Diego. We are one of the inclement weather shelter providers. We're also the largest. So the criteria for inclement weather shelter is very specific, and it is there's several bullets. So we'll go through those different activation criteria. It is either that we are going to have a low, an overnight low, excuse me, of 50 degrees or lower with a 40% or greater chance of rain, or inclement weather shelter could activate if we have a overnight low of 45 degrees or lower without rain, or it could be activated if there's an extreme weather condition. So by that, I mean thunderstorms in the area, any kind of alerts that are coming through the National Weather Service that would make it dangerous for someone to live on the streets. And then the final activation criteria would be that there is anticipated to be 25 mile per hour or greater winds. And so
Okay.
all of those, weather combinations can make it dangerous for someone to live on the streets. So we open up our dining rooms, we welcome people in. They can start coming in as early as 4 p.m. Then they have to leave by 5 o'clock the next morning so that we can transition that space. While they're with us, we're really working on making sure that their dignity is intact. We want to provide them hygiene supplies that they may need. If they have wet feet or wet clothes, we're going to give them or offer them a change of clothing while they're sleeping with us. They've got blankets and warmth. We're filling up their bellies with
Good.
warm meal that was provided in our dining room that evening to our shelter clients. And then when they leave in the morning, if there's still bad weather outside, we provide them with ponchos or anything that they may need to try to stay dry on the streets until they get to their next destination.
And you're seeing individuals and families?
We do serve individuals and families. We're really
Wow.
lucky to have a space that we can set aside for people who are living on the streets with their children. And so we do have an individualized space for those families, and then our single adults can stay over in another area.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you to your staff. That must be so much work to set it all up and tear it all down. And I'm sure they're working overtime
It really
making that
is.
happen. So thank you to them.
Yeah, and they're just on call, right? So waiting for that
Yeah.
weather event to happen. We know
Right.
by 10
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning, usually, sometimes as late as 2 o'clock in the
Okay.
afternoon. So while the rest of us are snuggled up at home and warm and cozy, we have a team of people who are putting in extra time to make sure that this life-saving resource is really available to people who are staying on the streets.
And they are dedicated. And last year, inclement weather was called quite a bit. I
Mhm.
mean, you might recall that it was very wet and
Yeah.
cold and
Mhm.
windy last season. So it was called quite a bit. So I was very proud of the team. They stepped up time and time again. I know they were
Mhm.
exhausted at the end of it all. And this year, let's hope it's not that bad. Not only
Yeah.
for the sake of the team members, but also for the sake of those who are on the streets. I mean, we love offering this extra support because it's so extremely necessary.
Mhm.
I know I toss and turn in my bed,
Right.
especially during inclement weather season when I hear raining outside my window, right? Because I know that we've been able to take some off the streets, but not all,
It's never enough.
right?
Yeah.
So and always wanted to do more and more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, great. Let's talk about food now. I know some of you who are listening who already know and love our organization know that we started from more humble beginnings, making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Can you tell us about
Th-
that and what
That
food services look like
That's
now?
that's what it was. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. You're recalling correctly. I mean, we're almost 75 years in existence, right? In a
Right.
couple of years, we'll be at the 75-year mark. When it first started, really what we did was those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that we
Yeah.
would serve at lunch. That's what happened. That's
Yeah.
what,
That's what you
at least
had.
that's what we
Yeah.
had, and that's what the support that we gave.
Yeah.
And then look at what's happened over the years, right now with all the varied services that we provide and comprehensiveness and a holistic approach that we take. But yes, we serve, I think I mentioned before, we serve 1 million meals a year, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they're warm as Jesse mentioned, they're warm and hot meals that are nutritionally balanced, right? I mean, so we have our executive chef, Emil, who's there, and he very lovingly prepares these meals with his team. In fact, there was someone who has been staying with us for a bit who used the term exotic the other day when
Oh,
she was speaking with us and said she enjoyed the exotic meals that we
it's a
served.
diverse menu.
I love
Yeah,
it.
And
it's
she
very
she was
inclusive.
referring to the diversity of it
Yeah.
because Chef Emile has gotten to the point where he's having different cuisines that he's preparing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I really appreciated that term that she used.
Mhm.
But the point is that it's balanced and nutritious, and that's what it's all about, especially
Mhm.
for our kids, of course, across the board, but
Right.
especially for our kids, because we know that those who, especially they've been chronically on the streets and they suffer from malnutrition, what happens? It shows in their health, it shows in their teeth, right? They lose their dental work, and so that's an important element as
Mhm.
well. And we have our 5K, which is coming up
Mhm.
soon, right? We're the longest running 5K in the history of San Diego. That'll be Thanksgiving morning at Balboa Park.
It's lots of fun.
It's lots of fun. We have more than 7,000 individuals who come.
It's a huge event.
I
Yeah.
love looking out at the Caprillo Bridge when I
Mhm.
set
Mhm.
them off for the race or for the walk. A lot of people just come to walk. People
Yeah.
come with their dogs and their pets,
Uh-huh.
and they dress
Uh,
them up like turkeys
yeah.
and the like, and they come with their children. It is just a lot of fun.
It is.
Wonderful way to
Mhm.
kick off Thanksgiving morning, if you think about it, because that evening you'll be sitting around your own table with your family, right, and enjoying that and thinking about all the blessings. And here you're able to come in and really support our organization, and all the proceeds there go for the meals, those
Mhm.
meals that we serve on a yearly basis. So it's extremely important. And then you can feel a sense of satisfaction after you go off. You also burned off some calories before
Right.
you consume them,
Right.
and that's good too. But a sense of feeling I've done something that's really worthwhile and good. It makes a difference in people's lives. We have Disney characters for the kids after
Oh,
after
yeah.
the walk or the race. There's a beer garden, in
Yeah.
fact, right? That beer garden at 10 o'clock is very popular after they've
Something for
run
everyone.
that race, and it's just a lot of fun. We start the morning at 6:30 in the morning with mass for those who want to come to mass, and that's a way of we kick off
Mhm.
the day in a sense and sanctify our work there, and then we head off to the races in a sense, right? So it's a lot of fun, and it makes a difference in the lives of a lot of
Mm.
people,
So it's contributing to these 3 meals a day that you have in your shelters, the public lunch line that you serve lunch at
right?
every day, and then the emergency food pantry, right? Is that's part of
Well, interesting. You mentioned the emergency food pantry. You're right. I mean, every Friday, we have cars that line up outside our driveway, and the line is getting longer and longer because we hand out boxes of non-perishables to those who are housed
Mhm.
but they're at risk of being falling onto the streets. So this helps them in so that they can budget their finances, right? So they at least know they have some food that they will have available for that week. So it's a big box with a lot of non-perishables, and they're able to cook meals at their own in their own home
How many
for their
families are you talking?
families.
How many boxes are you giving out a week or a month?
Oh, I think at this point in time, the numbers have been growing. I mean, we have a few hundred that we give out on every Friday, because it's every Friday that we have these cars that come by, and I just it's amazing to me. Kind of breaks my heart in a sense to see these cars as long as they're getting the line that's getting, but it also warms my heart to know that hey, we're helping them in their time of need.
This is a substantial commitment to the community. How do you offset the costs? I know you talked about the 5K, you talked about philanthropy.
That well,
That's
it's
it?
philanthropy, and as Jesse mentioned, the city funded programs that we have as well.
Okay,
But
yeah.
it's primarily philanthropy. I mean, if you think about it, it's a lot. And by philanthropy, I mean individual gifting. We also have grants that we receive, and grants from corporations, from foundations, from family members, in fact, as well, that they have that they set up grant systems as well. So there are various ways of getting involved. People leave legacies to us, right? People they contributed throughout their lifetimes and have made a difference, and they feel they've made a difference. They want to continue to make a difference after this lifetime, right?
Mhm.
And I'm so appreciative of those individuals who leave us in their estates. They leave us an amount so that we can continue our work, and that makes a difference. I'm always while I pray for all our donors, and I particularly pray for those who have passed. And Thanksgiving for their lives that they've led, and the difference that they've made in the lives of those who we serve.
How about some success stories? How have meeting these basic needs impacted the lives of people experiencing homelessness?
Yeah, we see it every day. There's the big successes when people exit into housing. That's obviously the ultimate goal. And so those successes occur regularly. I think it's the small incremental successes that could be easy to overlook that stand out to me the most. Um, and so, seeing someone who decides to come into the shelter for the first time, we had a client who was notorious for living out and around our day center for years, and our day center lovingly referred to her as one of our diamond clients, and really was a client that they made a focus of interacting with, and their goal was to get her to go into shelter. And so it took years of relationship building to get her motivated to move into permanent or into shelter, and she's now in permanent housing.
Mm, that's
So
nice.
it's those kinds of things, just those daily moments of building trust that
Mhm.
really impact lives in a grand scale. So
Yeah, that's what it's all about, building that trust. And what, as you were speaking, Jesse, someone by the name of Eric came to my mind, because Eric is a veteran, and he's someone who had been doing well actually, and was married and had been married for many years, and then his wife took ill, and he lost his wife, and felt that caused him to spiral. I mean, he had some mental health challenges as a result, just accepting that the loss of his wife. I've been married to my beloved for 46 years. I've known her since I was 12, and I don't know what I do without her. I mean,
Right.
so
Yeah.
can only imagine. I felt for Eric tremendously, and a veteran, someone he has served in the wars and defended our freedoms, and here, I mean, he was just so mentally incapacitated at the loss of his wife. He fell onto the streets, and thank God he found us, and through our health center and the behavioral health clinic, our behavioral health clinic, they were able to help him in his situation, right? And then able to situate him initially with shelter, and then with housing, which is, as Jesse says, is ultimately that's what breaks the cycle of homelessness, right? And so now he's getting, it's a struggle for him, but he's doing so much better, and he continues, and he's so thankful for the assistance and the support that we've given him. And again, he's done the work, right? We
Right.
provide those resources, and we're happy to do that. And but it's made a difference in Eric's life, and there's so many of them, so many Erics, huh?
yeah, so many Erics, and I there's just so many cool things that we get to do at Father Joe's
That's
Villages
right.
because of flexible funds. I'm thinking of a family who came to us in shelter. It was their first time homeless. It was situational homelessness. And they came around the holidays, which we're coming up on. And so it really makes me think of them every year. But every year they had a tradition of baking Christmas cookies. That was part of their family tradition for the holiday. And they thought that they weren't going to be able to. Well, we have what's called a family or oh my gosh, fun room. What does it stand for? Family Unity
Right.
Yeah.
Night. And so in our licensed therapeutic childcare program, one of our upstairs floors has a kitchen that families can check out and cook. And so the family was able to keep up with that tradition, and we provided the supplies that they needed to make their
Oh.
cookies. And it's just like this situation and this housing crisis didn't break what was important to them as a family. And I just think that's so important that we
Yes.
have the opportunity to be really flexible and meet people, like you said, where they are, and to keep their dignity intact and
And to give them their identity back.
right to give
That's
them their
exactly
name
right.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they've never lost their identity, right?
Right.
And sometimes they feel they have it. So that's and you mentioned Jesse. That's such a great example. But you mentioned sitting around a table. How important is that for us in our respective families? You build a relationship in that way, and you get after one another as
Yeah.
well. And so, but that's important. So providing that as a resource is so very, very important. I mean, we like to build family even in our congregate dining areas, right? But you can just do that in a limited fashion, right? But we provide that hospitality there. But then this particular kitchen allows the families to really be themselves and be with each other, and that makes such a tremendous difference. Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. You shed light on this really important topic, our programs that meet basic needs. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having us.
you.
Great. Thank you so much.
And thank you to our listeners of Neighbors Helping Neighbors. Don't forget that even small acts of kindness can make a world of difference in someone's life. See you next time.